Good to go.
All right, great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 Government Operations Committee meeting. Thank you all for being here. Nice to see everyone. So changes to the agenda. I was very remiss in forgetting to add our Public Library Director to our agenda, who I told more than a month ago she could be on our May agenda, and here we are in May. So I'm going to give her a chance to give us an update right at the beginning here after we do the advisory board appointment. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay. I don't think we have comments from the public. Okay. Let's do the minutes of April 4th. Rich moves, seconded by Susan. Questions, comments, changes? All right, all in favor? It's nice to have everybody in chambers today. Let's do the advisory board appointment. There's one to the Tompkins County Historical Commission, Patricia Longoria. Term expires December 31st, 2026. Can I have somebody move that? Mike, seconded by Rich. Questions, comments? Rich?
I'm just continually impressed by the quality of the historians in our community that step up. We got great history.
Yep, I know Pat as well, and she's great.
I don't know her, but
well,
I read the application.
Yeah, lots of great folks in the community. All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's invite Leslie Tabor up to the table, and come with us. You could pretend to be Shauna today. Thanks for being here, and again, I'm sorry for the failing to get you on the agenda, but thanks for being here.
It's amazing how busy the year is going. Yes. So again, thank you for having me. Leslie Tabor, I'm director of the Tompkins County Public Library. It was this time last year when I was able to address you for the first time as the new director, so thank you for having me again. Last year was on May the 4th, so I'll remind you that Saturday is Star Wars Day, so May the 4th be with you. It's a high holy day. Just a couple of updates for all of you. The first is that we celebrated a ribbon cutting for the completion of our RFID project on April 12th. We were delighted to have Amanda there and to have so much support from the community to celebrate this big project. It's not often that you get to take on a big project or have a ribbon cutting in the workplace, so I'm very excited to celebrate that. Melissa Seidel, the new board president, is giving you some favors from that event, and I'd also like to thank Currie Barnes, who is in attendance as well, the executive director of the TCPL Foundation, who provides funding. The second is that summer reading is just around the corner. It officially kicks off on June 15th. Remember, we want all of our small friends and all of our tall friends, so everyone in this room, reading at least 20 minutes per day so that you have strong brains and that you don't forget what you learned in the last school year before you head to the new one. So that will kick off on the 15th, which is a Saturday. And there's also adult summer reading, and you can read books and win prizes, so it's a great time for the whole community. And then lastly, I just want to acknowledge that I know we are heading into budget season, everyone's favorite time of year. We look forward to it just like Christmas. So any questions that you have or support that you need in terms of understanding the library budget, happy to provide. We'll plan to see you in your expanded budget meetings later in the fall. I also wanted to remind you that our business manager retired recently. So thank you to Michelle Benjamin, who provided 30 years of service to the library and the county and was amazing and did some of the best book work I've ever seen. So if your clerks or other people in your finance office get chagrined because I'm the one messing around in the software, I apologize in advance, but I look forward to bringing forth our budget requests. I think that's all, but I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have. Yes, Mike.
Good morning. Thanks for coming. What's the process, or what part of the process are you in to replace Michelle?
Great question. That's been a hot topic. So it's a civil service position. We, in the course of 2023, revised the job description to better closely match the various tasks that she does. So we have that approved. We have posted the job through the county, of course. We've had a first round of interviews. Unfortunately, we had one candidate drop out, so we're trying to ascertain if we want to bring in another person or reopen the posting and go back for another pool. So we are all very, very anxious to have this position filled. We are closer than I thought we would be at this point, that we had a qualified group of candidates to interview within a month of her departure. Felt very edifying to me. So I would say, hopefully within the next month or two, we would have someone appointed and getting settled in. Knock on wood.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes. Luckily, she gave notice early, and so we were able to plan before her departure. But it is a tough market out there, so it's a candidate's market right now. So if any of you are interested, put in your application.
If I knew how to do math, I would definitely apply.
Supposedly, the spreadsheets help, so I'm a librarian. I leave the math to other people.
Yeah. I just had a question. How many other open positions do you have at the moment?
That's a great question. And forgive me if I give you more context than you want. So in the budget year prior to when I arrived, 2 positions had been approved to reinstate COVID level staffing. So that was for 2 librarian 1 positions. In a very strange turn of events, both of those librarian 1s have already promoted up. So we are now refilling those 2 librarian 1 positions. We also have an open librarian 3 adult services manager position. The newly promoted person had some unexpected family events and actually stepped down. So that position is open again. But we're actually doing pretty well with staffing right now. We are looking at, of course, one of our OTRs last year was for an HR specialist, so I think that's something that we are still prioritizing. The board has really homed in on that. But staffing-wise, we're actually doing pretty well.
Great. Questions, Mike?
Where are you in your collective bargaining processes?
Mike. So the contract ends December 31st of this year.
Okay.
So per the contract, we cannot enter into negotiations before July 1st.
Yep.
So we anticipate negotiations starting in July.
Okay. There's just one unit, right?
There are 2 bargaining units. There's
units.
professional staff and support staff. Both of the support staff just elected a new steward, and the professional staff steward is probably still in her first year.
Yeah, just going back to the RFID, the ribbon cutting was great. It was great to see Senator Leah Webb was there. How has the response been from the public about that?
The response has been good but mixed. I think anytime you change anything, people miss the way that things were, and then there are always the people who take to it like ducks to water, and you literally never hear a word from them. So we are doing a lot of time interacting with patrons, showing them how to use the software, reminding them that there are still people around who want to work with them. We've actually doubled the coverage at our service points in response to the new system, and also in terms of data response, as we have been rolling out the RFID and preparing for it in the last calendar year, circulation of materials went up by over 42,000 items. So we're already seeing some benefits of the work that we've been doing on the collection and with the technology ad.
Great, great. Other questions? Rich?
I just wanted to give an update. After our last meeting, I agreed I'd sit down with Liam to talk about bylaws.
Okay.
So ball's in my court on that.
Yeah, they, talking about the board bylaws.
And I think there's just the one issue of number of members, whether it's a range or a number.
Yeah, and he did send that to me, and I shared it with Katrina, and we just haven't had a chance to, sit down and read through it. So, but it sounds like you're going to talk to Liam, who's on the board, just for transparency. Okay.
Yeah, he's a secretary. He's also a lawyer, so we'll have
Yeah, you lawyers.
we'll have legal chat.
You lawyers.
We have a high number of lawyers on our board. I would just like to point that out for everyone. And thank this committee and Amanda for your patience. We're all very united in wanting to get these bylaws done.
Yeah, definitely. And you've also had a couple new members join the board. I met one of them at the ribbon cutting. That was great.
Yes, so we've had, and you've seen the applications come through, Mimi Townsend, Daryl Long, Kathy Weinberg, and then Christina Brewington, who works at GIAC. So we're very excited. We have a couple of long-standing members rolling off at the end of this year. So very excited that new people continue to be interested.
It's great. It's great to have the interest. I know it can be hard to pull people from another board to join your board, so that's great. Okay, anything else for Leslie or the library? All right, well, thank you again for being here.
Of course.
Sorry for the
Happy
snafu.
spring.
All right,
See you at the library.
Oh, and you failed to mention that the biggest event of the year is starting this weekend, the Friends of the Library book sale.
Oh, don't tell them I did that.
And it's my favorite time of the year.
Yes, 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 yes. A lot of materials, including some very beautiful art, which is, some of it's currently hanging in the library if you'd like a sneak peek before the sale.
Great. So next 3 weekends in May. All right, great, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to assessment. We have a lot on our agenda today, folks, so we are not gonna talk about assessment the whole day. I'm sorry, Jay, I know you wanna be here for the next 2 hours. I would like to let Jay give his report first, the tentative assessment role, and then we can go into the question and idea that Greg has had. So we're looking at you, Jay.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Good morning. This was another typical year in my office, oddly enough. We sent out 23,600 changes. Well, first, typically I don't give a tentative roll update, I give one final, but realizing people would probably have questions and want to talk to me, that's why I came here and said we'll give a little update on the tentative roll. So for the preliminary roll, we sent out 23,600 assessment changes. We've talked about that. During the month of March and beginning of April, we had informal assessment review meetings for people to come in, talk to our office, confirm inventory, provide us with a little more information about their properties so that we can take another look at their property. We had 2,673 of those, or about 11.33% of those changes. As I've said many times before, you know, you plan for 20, you hope for 10, you expect 15%. So we've pretty much tracked right around there. You know, on average, we're at 9.8 over the last 20 years of those. The last 2 years when we sent out 20,000 plus changes, we only had 5% of the changes coming in. So it was good to kind of get back to normal as to what we would expect for our changes. You know, by far we're not perfect. We're trying to value property from the road, from historical information that we had. That sort of information is getting tougher and tougher to get. Building permit information is getting tougher to get. So unfortunately, we're back kind of where we were in the past of having to rely on our old information. And but one more thing is we're relying on the public more. You know, we need their help in order to ensure that they're assessed correctly and everybody else is assessed correctly. One thing, after we did all of those assessment reviews, we plot them all on the map. And we say, is there any trends? Is there an area that we need to revalue? You know, we don't want the squeaky wheel to get the oil. We want everybody to do so. So there were a couple small areas that we said, all right, if we adjusted this property, we also have to adjust B, C, and D that didn't come in as well. So on yesterday, May 1, we filed the tentative assessment roll. We sent out 3,339 assessment changes yesterday. So those are anyone whose assessment changed from the preliminary roll and anyone who filed for an informal assessment review and whose assessment didn't change. So those are those changes that go out. Our big day now is May 28th. Grievance day is the last day for someone to formally contest the tentative assessment. At this point in time, I'm it's not legal for me to change the tentative assessment role. So any change has to be authorized by the Board of Assessment Review. So kind of our hands are out of this now. So the Board of Assessment Review is an independent board you all appoint for 5-year terms. And we've talked about how great our board is. And we also appoint 6 temporary hearing panel members to triple our capacity to deal with people coming in and also to specialize those boards. So I think that's all I wanted on the tentative rule.
Okay. Questions about that? Rich?
Just to give you an opportunity to respond, there's been, some meetings about what's happening with tax levies and assessments, and a phrase was used which I think is not really accurate, which is drive-by assessment. You don't do a drive-by assessment where you just drive by a house and change somebody's assessment. And I'd like to let you just put on the record the work that's actually done.
No, that's a good way that I would phrase it.
Okay.
You do have drive-by appraisals that are done. So you drive by, legally, we can only see a property from the public right-of-way. We may be able to go knock on the door, but if it's posted legally, we can't go on that property. So we drive by the property from the road. We're basing it upon the historical information we have, the sketch. So it's more of a drive to the property, stop, appraise the property, drive to the next property.
But I guess my point is that there's a base of information that you have. You're not driving by and going, oh, right? That there's a history, and you're just gathering more information when you're driving to see if there's any significant changes you can see from the road. But that's not the basis for the assessment.
Correct. Yeah, we're confirming the inventory that we have on file when we go out. We're trying to confirm the condition of the property as well from the outside. Obviously, that's not the inside as well, but we simply, it would be financially irresponsible to have to revalue every property doing a full-blown fee appraisal. I'd need $18 to $20 million out of my budget, and probably more than half of the property owners wouldn't allow us onto their property. So unfortunately, this is the best approach that is available for assessors in New York.
Greg and then Mike.
Thanks, Jay. Quick question. What's the period of time in which you do the reappraisals, or the appraisals?
This year we started first week of June, and we went all the way through December.
Okay, so like a 6-month period?
Correct.
So is it fair to say that you're averaging about 196 assessment changes per day?
Our teams were told to do 75 parcels per day.
Okay.
On average, that's what we needed in order to get it done. There's time built in for that, but yeah, 75 parcels a day. Most assessing units out west will do 300 to 500 parcels a day.
And is that by trending?
No, that's full-blown desktop review.
Got it.
For that number.
With the same number of people we have, or with a significant greater number of people?
A significant greater number of people. I don't know if I have the International Association of Assessing Units, but out west, typically they'll average 1,800 to 2,000 parcels per person. And, I think we're in the 3,000s.
Okay, so we're asking to do twice as much, or 35 to 40% more than what others are doing in larger metropolitan areas.
With a lot less technology as well.
Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, Jay, thanks. A couple of things. First, you said that you're having more trouble getting information on building permits, and I wondered what the problem is there.
Yeah. Well, we just did a code office centralization study, so I could have Darby come on up. But no, it's just a reflection of today, I think. You have people who are very good at their jobs. I don't want any sort of misconception about the job that the code officers are doing. But they're asked to do more and more. And when they're asked to do more, they have to cut certain help or assistance that they're able to offer. So we have a lot of part-time code officers in our more rural towns that may only be there a couple hours, and they have their work to get done. So it's very hard for us to say, hey, here's these 10 building permits on remodeling. Can you give us some information on what's going on? Or here's a property off the road. Do you know what's going on with this property? And trying to get that interaction with them. You know, when I first started way back when, you got a building permit, you went out to the field, you measured it, you knocked on the door. We just can't simply do that today in today's society. So we were trying to work cooperatively with them. Technology challenges. It took us 6 months in order to get a building permit from the city of Ithaca out of their new permitting system. We finally got access to that, so that's going to be good now. So it's just a reflection of too much work and too little people doing it at that town level as well.
Sounds to me.
I used to bring donuts to Ulysses, so maybe it's the no donuts anymore.
Well, he used to bring muffins to Lansing as well, so yes, that's one. But it's just that reflection, and you know they have their work to do, and we're secondary to that.
Sounds to me that this is an issue that ought to be brought up at TCOG. Let them know that we're having trouble accessing that information.
Well, I don't want to, we don't have trouble really accessing the information. We're getting the building permit information. It's just having that interaction with the code officers. And, you know, they have their duties and what they're trying to do. They have their terminology as to what is a 2-unit house or a 2-family house.
And I understand you're not criticizing them, but I do think that the town governments ought to know that that is an issue, and it makes it more difficult for us to have even more accurate assessment information for you.
Yeah, you know, we have talked about it with a couple of towns with part-time code officers that kind of seem to come and go, and the supervisors have been great in order to get us that. You know, we have unbridled access to some of our other towns that are just great as well. So it's not everybody, but you know, obviously the more cooperation we have, the easier life is for everybody.
The other thing I wanted to ask about is that we've had folks in here unhappy about the assessments, thinking that your department isn't handling things right, saying we ought to have a committee to set up to look at this, and they could design a better way of assessing. I don't think folks understand your hands are tied to state law and the way you must do things. We've had communications from Cornell professors and others that, oh, you know, this isn't reasonable what we do, and somehow we've got to get that information out to them. I don't necessarily think that setting up a special committee for that is the way to go. In the past, we've looked at some issues like that through the Chamber of Commerce. They've done things for us and set up groups. But I'm a little concerned about what we're hearing out there and their idea that if we just put them on a committee, they can come up with a better way to assess than we have.
I mean, I can come up with a bunch of better ways to assess, but I'm tied by the real property tax law as to what defines market value, how you define that for certain types of properties. You have to value in its current use, not in its highest and best use. We're bound by equity. You know, Section 305 in the recent New York City court case that I believe you forwarded around really shows that you have to keep up to date with the market value of property. You can't just apply an inflation factor. We did that with trending. Trending is a way to make your values better, but it's going to cause inequity as well on the roll. You know, the best way to value property is to reappraise that property each and every year. We'd love to do that, but not every year we have the staff, we have the time, we have that availability to do so. But I'm more than willing this summer, we can have some focus groups to come as a way to try to get out that information. You know, I look at I mean, one thing, the people aren't coming to me to talk about this. Nobody has come into my office and said, Jay, well, sorry, I just got an email before I came in, and someone said, hey, could you meet with us to talk about this? But I haven't get that. Unfortunately, people get their news from social media nowadays and think it's true, which is really disappointing. And I'm not on social media, but the reports that I've gotten at how racist people will make, or how racist comments people will make online about my office is despicable, absolutely despicable. So social media is by far the downfall of society, in my opinion. It's, you know, people post something online and they think it's correct. So, you know, come to the source if you have any questions. More than willing to answer. I don't dodge anything. I don't dodge any questions. I love the scrutiny we're getting because, yes, we are very good at what we do. We haven't changed anything in my 28 years that we've done. Yes, we have improved our products, improved our notices, refined our terminology, so we are better than what we were 27 years ago. We could be so much better, but my office had 19.5 FTEs when I started. We have 13.3 now, soon to be 14.3 when GIS moves over. I don't know of any other county department that has lost that amount of staff, but yet still is required to do more work than what we've done. So hey, this scrutiny is great. I'm more than willing to do more. We'll talk about that during the budget process as well, and we'll see where we need to go. But you know, I'm happy with the higher expectations from the public. I think that's great. We're willing to meet those, and hopefully we'll get the resources from you all to meet them, or we need to realign those expectations of the public as to what we're capable of doing.
Okay, our assessment time is passing quickly. And I know Greg had something that he wanted to bring up, which might be related to this conversation, but do you have a separate question?
I just have a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question, it's okay. I have a very active sections, Bryant Park, Bell Sherman, South Hill, and I have been asked to attend a Bryant Park, Bell Sherman civic meeting. There was quite a lot of activity about assessment, and this one page that you gave us today is really excellent. And if I share that with them and tell them to get in touch with you, you know, based on these dates, is that okay?
Yep.
That sounds great. Okay,
Yep.
great.
And I'd also recommend, you know, we worked with Dom. We put out a
Yes.
one-page newsletter.
I sent that to them.
Yeah, we worked
That was
with
great.
Dob and Rob, which I
Yeah.
got to say thank you, and thanks for bringing up that. We put together a video of how assessments work as
Great.
well, so get that out as well.
All of that's
So,
great. Right now,
Yep.
they seem very focused on the school budget, which is sort of diverted from this.
Yep.
But this is very helpful information, so I just wanted to make sure I want to take that to the meeting when I give my report, and I'm sure they'll have questions, and I'll direct them to your office. Thank you.
All right, turning to Greg to talk about assessment letters or other questions that you have.
Yeah, I guess the first thing, I want to push back a little bit on Mike's comments, because we've got a case board, we've got a strategic tourism planning board, we've got all these other advisory boards. This function, assessment, and again, this is with no due respect to the professionals in your office that do the work, but we have professionals all across the county that have advisory boards that work with them. And I don't think it's people saying we can do it better. I think it's people saying we really want to understand, we want to be involved in this process, we want to help get the information out. And is there a better way to do certain functions within the functions that you do, which I think anybody would acknowledge that there's always room to improve. Yep. And so I don't think it's people saying we can do your job better. I think it's people saying we use this term equity, but a lot of people don't feel that the assessments are equitable, and for many reasons. And there's a lack of understanding. There's several things that go into that. And so that, I think, is why people want to do that. And I think that this is something that this committee should strongly consider and not be so dismissive of, because we have people that want to engage with government, and that's a good thing. My second piece is around the letter. And I think that...
Which letter?
the Tompkins County Department of Assessment 2024 Assessment Disclosure Notice.
Okay.
That each person
Gets when there's a change to their assessment. I think the feedback that I've heard from more people than I could probably keep track of, and my own feelings, is that it's very misleading. And I don't believe it's intentionally misleading, but I believe it is confusing. It says right on the top, this is not an estimate of taxes owed, nor is it an advisement of a refund. And then down below it says decrease in estimated taxes. So we're saying it's not an estimate, but then we're showing what estimated taxes would be if all things were held equal from one year to another, which we know is not the case, because when we have one taxing jurisdiction that says, oh, well, we're going to hold the rate the same, by the time somebody gets the letter's already out of date. So I wonder if there was, so is this different? No, this is 2020, you're passing around 2020 to 2023.
and there's a 23, 24.
2024. So I think that there's a lot of confusion, and when you show a decrease in taxes by holding levies flat and then reducing rates, which your office has no control over, people see, oh, my assessment's going to decrease. But then you have Ithaca City School District that says we're going to potentially hold the rate steady. So this letter's already out of date and already has incorrect information.
Yep.
So I think that we need to take a serious look at this letter and clarify some terminology, and probably eliminate this idea of if all things are equal, because we know all things are not equal, and come up with a better way to notify people that's maybe more informative of the process, or key dates to keep track of, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to voice that concern. I don't know if this is something that your office can take up and then bring back possible solutions, or if this is something that we need to pass a resolution calling for your office to do this. But I just...
So let me just
That's
jump
where
in.
I'm at. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing this up, and thanks for this, and I'll give you a chance in a second. But so what I told Greg, he has a couple of things related to assessment that he wants to bring to the committee, which is great. And anybody can bring anything they want to the committee, and we'll discuss it. So we can talk about this a little bit right now, but I think the question before us is this something that we want to talk more deeply about? Is this something that we want to direct the assessment office to look at? And I think that's the answer that we need to have today, is not how do we solve the problem, if there is a problem, but do we want to look more deeply into it? Does that make sense? Okay. So I'll give you a chance to respond, and then I want to hear what other legislators think.
Well, as with everything, we just don't make stuff up in my office. We do according to the real property tax law. So New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 510 and 511 dictate how we send out assessment change notices. So typically, the first page I gave out is our typical assessment change notice that we do when we send out, 3,000 to 8,000 changes. Materially, it doesn't make a difference in the tax base, so we're not going to see a change in rates based upon a change in the increase in the tax base. So this is when we send out that first page notice. That's Section 511, I believe. So you just put the assessment change, you give a reason for that change, and you list a whole bunch of information on how they can appeal. So in a year of a revaluation, or when your equalization rate dips below 85%, typically you do these assessment disclosure notices, and they are misleading if people don't understand what they're about. So all it does is it shows what your taxes would have been last year if your assessment and everybody's new assessment is in place. We've done this the last 3 years, and we do it when we send out a lot of assessment changes for a lot of increased value. So that typically shows what tax rates could go to if the tax levy stayed constant. And I actually build in a 0.5% decrease from when our preliminary numbers are until we get to the tentative. This year we lost 0.48% of value, so that 0.5% was pretty good. So this notice, I think, is important because if everybody got a doubling of their assessment, you don't want people to think, oh shoot, my taxes are gonna go up double as well, because that's not gonna happen. That's misleading to show that. But when you recalculate those tax rates and I show that tax rate on there, that really gives everybody a starting point from this is based upon last year's taxes and this is your new percentage that you're responsible to pay. So we do the assessment disclosure notice when we send out a lot of changes and there's a lot of value. When we don't, we just send out the basic, here's your assessment change. And if the last letter that you got right there, the third page, that is what we send out as a result of the disclosure hearings. You know, that's our formal change notice that we send out on May 1. It's simply, here's what your assessment, here's your preliminary if you had one, and here's that change, and then a reason for that. So we do change our notice based upon the number of changes based upon the law of what we should do.
And so the law dictates that this is the exact notice that we send?
Not the exact notice, but it says you need to put in the new assessments, the new proportionate share of the tax burden, recalculating those rates. So that's part in. All of the other verbiage that we've had on here, you know, this is a form that we've had since 1999. And we slowly tweak it, we add it as the public is confused about something. And a lot of the times I worry we're putting too much information on a form and it's overwhelming people. So, you know, the things we could do with this are endless, but we're really tied by a 30-year-old state-provided database, a 27-year-old public information database, and 27-year-old access databases that Norma worked on and I've worked on from way back when. So, you know, we've really pinched pennies in my office for technology, and I think it's great that people are scrutinizing us and asking us to do more.
Okay, I've got Rich.
Yeah, in addressing the question you put on the table, I think this is something we should talk about. Having attended that meeting I told you about, Jay, people were confused by this document, the way it's laid out. But I think we should have a document that helps people, and I see that's what you were trying to do. You were trying to say, well, if the levies don't change, here's where you sit. I'm wondering if it might be possible to do a calculation saying at your new assessed value, here is your share of the total tax base. So it's going to be this very, very small percentage, and you can compare that last year to next year. So you're getting rid of what the municipalities may be doing with their levies. You're saying, here's how much of the lift this property is going to have to provide. And so you'd see, oh yeah, there isn't a change, or is, you know, it moved up or down, whatever. Citizens would have to get educated on what that meant, but I think it probably would be clearer than this, because putting in disclosure tax rates suggests we have some idea what the different towns, counties, cities, school districts are going to do, and you're getting blamed for that, and I think you want to just stay away from it as much as possible. But yeah, I think we should look at this. I don't think we need a separate committee necessarily. I think we understand what the issue is. But yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, when we did this in 2022, everybody at the other real property tax directors are like, why would you want to do impact notices? They just cause confusion, they cause headaches. So I'm like, no, we really need to show this impact. So we put it out there, and the feedback I got was so positive. Everybody was like, wow, this is great. The realtors were like, wow, this is great information we have. I can take this to new buyers, be able to look at it. Same with last year. This is great information. We love this. I'm like, wow, this is, you know, we've really done a good job educating the community. They like this notice. and then this year happened. And
I
we'll,
think,
we'll
yeah.
do better next year.
Well, I think the difference really is we're seeing such a wild market.
Yeah.
The property values are changing so much.
And still increasing. That's one. As I look at our 2024 tentative assessment compared to what the listing prices are, we're still seeing those listing prices predominantly over what our assessment is.
Okay, Susan, Mike, do you feel like we should pursue this? Mike?
Yes, I think it needs to be reviewed and looked at. Doesn't need, but I want folks to understand what the state is requiring to be in here in these disclosures. And I'm not saying they aren't, I just think we aren't necessarily understanding what you have to do according to state law as well. And as I said about the committee, I don't necessarily think that's the case. You have advisors in your Board of Assessment review that review complaints on a regular basis every year. Mm-hmm. And if they're making a lot of changes, I would imagine that's something that you take into consideration. And Greg, to your point, some of the letters I've had from economists at Cornell have explained to me that they have a better model, or there could be a better model, let's put it that way.
Love to see it.
Sure.
I agree. I mean, the good news is that we've got everybody's attention this year more than ever. And we've had so many emails about assessments. But the bad news is I think people understand less and less. Yeah. So sometimes more information is not good. I think Rich said that. But I do think that we could look at this more, and we do appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. I have an amazing staff. When I hear people have vacancies, I don't have any vacancies in my office. I love the people I work with. They're true public servants trying to serve the public.
And I continue to hear that when I talk to folks. I think it was at the COFA advisory board, and we were talking just briefly about assessment, and somebody was like, yeah, I went in there and they were so nice and they helped me out. And so I continue to hear that. So that's really wonderful and reassuring.
Yeah, and that's, I try to reassure them that the angst we're seeing from the public isn't directed at us personally. Right. It's directed at the work that are doing by law to do, and having the scrutiny and trying to improve what we do. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. We're one of the best assessing units in New York State, if not the best right now. But we should be so much better. We could be so much better. So
here's what I'm going to suggest. We could all do better, by the way. I mean, we're all, just trying our best. Is that you've heard what we've said. If you could take some time over the next couple of months to, have information to educate us what is required to be in here, what you think it should be like. And then I would suggest that Greg and maybe Rich, or those who have specific things that you think could be different, could meet with Jay and say, here's our questions, and bring those questions back to the committee, and we can have another full discussion on what we think this could or could not look like. Does that make sense? Greg?
Yeah, Jay, I have not intended to reach out. I was intentionally waiting to reach out to you till after you got through this period of time, because I know you guys were cranking. So would love to sit down and go through and share information. But it was just understanding your workload and the workload of your team and not trying to insert into that. And there's probably better times to do this than not.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Once, we'll file the tentative roll on July 1, and then you won't see me for a while. I'll disappear.
To the golf course.
But then I'll reappear, not that I'm out in public anymore, because even my wife is getting annoyed with people saying, there's Jay the villain. When my kids are around, a little different, but yeah.
So
Well,
does that sort of process work for you about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to.
Okay.
This is great. Thank you. If we can make it better, let's do it. No problem.
Okay. And we'll just keep walking through the different things and keep talking about them. And I always appreciate when people bring things to the committee and say, let's, see if we're going to move forward. So thank you. All right. Okay, excellent. Let's move on to Darby and the 2024 foreclosure report and recommendations. Hi.
Great, thanks. Hello. Darby Kiley here from the Department of Planning and Sustainability for our annual review of the tax foreclosure list. This is, I think the memo's on page 13 of your agenda package. So the county has a land transactions policy, which I have memorized as 09-07. And as the memo describes the process that we go through, where our department looks at the natural, cultural, historic resources and any potential risks or conflicts with zoning, risks associated with taking title to the property. So the finance department puts together the list back in October of the previous year, so October 2023. And that includes properties that are delinquent on their taxes for 3 years if they're residential parcels, or 2 years if they are vacant or commercial parcels. So we look at the list and draft recommendations. I met with Holly to discuss the properties we're talking about today, and then we also get our approval from Lisa. We make it easy on her. Quick email exchange this year. And so what we're recommending is nothing new for those who have been on the committee, is to withhold for taking title to, and then also not auctioning, these 2 stormwater parcels in the town of Newfield. And we've been talking to Newfield. They would like to develop a path for how to maintain and operate these stormwater parcels, but they haven't gotten there yet. And so we'll just keep them in the developer's name, who has not been paying taxes on these 2 parcels for several years. And I think the assessment is at like $1,000.26. So the tax burden on the county is about $100 a year for us to continue to make the taxing agencies whole. So that's our recommendation, to continue to just keep this on this list, to remove it from the auction list, and that we would not take title to it. And then the report, or the memo, also talks about the property that we did take title to last year in the village of Freeville. And so I talked to Holly, and then also our real estate attorney, Sharon Solomowitz. Okay, yes. So you'll be seeing some resolutions in the near future about the sale of that parcel to the village. So, and I know there's always concern about like what's going on in the parcel. I drive by it almost every day, so it's in good shape. No one's encroaching on it, or there's no concerns there. And then so you know that the timeline here, the foreclosure tour that we do, Jay's going along, we go to the auctioneer, finance department, we go to each parcel. If it's a vacant parcel, they put a post in the ground with a sign on it, or pin a letter to the door about the situation. And then the auction is scheduled for June 24th.
When is the tour?
Next Tuesday, the 7th. So that's when we see, so right now there's 11 residential and 16 minus these 2, as we're taking off 16 vacant or commercial properties. And so usually after the tour, finance gets a lot of people coming in to make the payments. But yeah, we're anticipating some more payoffs that just haven't happened the last couple weeks.
All right, Rich and then Greg.
Just because of the changes in the law, I assume any money received at the auction is going to go into a reserve account. Is that the plan?
It's my understanding that the sale from the properties last year continued to be held in escrow because we were waiting to find out
what happens.
And it does cover sale of properties back to May 23rd of last year. I think it's May 23rd.
Okay. We're just not going to dig a hole for ourselves if we, go party with the money. Okay.
Have we ever done that?
That would,
Fun
I'm
balance.
just kidding. I'm
no
totally
parties.
kidding. So with these two parcels, you're pulling them off the auction list. Does the current owner have the opportunity to rectify those once they come off the list?
they could be paying the taxes any day, but they just haven't.
Okay,
yet.
so,
Yeah.
and our intent is to take them off of this list so that the town of Newfield can figure out what they want to do.
Yes.
And we, as the county, have to pay the other municipalities or taxing jurisdictions to do that?
Yeah, because the owner does not pay the taxes, we make the taxing jurisdictions whole, right?
Got it. So is there any liability that we're putting on the owner of that property by pulling them off and holding them and not treating them like other properties and leaving them in their name and they're, entitled to them?
I mean, it is in their name.
For the benefit of the town of Newfield?
Yeah, I mean, we're not, because we're not taking title, the parcels continue to stay in their name. And
they continue to accumulate delinquent taxes, et cetera.
Yeah.
When we could draw the line as a policy and just take title to them or put them up at auction.
Right. But because of what these are, being stormwater parcels that have a maintenance and operations condition, we just haven't done that in the last several years. Right. There's
Well, I know it's not property the county wants, but the county's acting in a way to hold it back from our process because someone wants to do something with it and they haven't figured out what they want to do.
No, they just have, they've just disappeared.
I know, but
Yeah,
why doesn't Newfield just step up and take the parcel in the auction or in this process?
So what happened, the same thing happened in 2020-ish with Danby, and Danby created a drainage district. And in doing that, so Newfield is looking into a drainage district or a homeowners association, so they need to work with the municipal or with the neighbors there to decide the best process for which they have not gotten traction on yet.
So in doing that, we're going to further penalize the property owner by not taking action on them and having them accumulate additional tax debt on those parcels.
Theory.
In practice.
No, but they'll never pay.
They'll never pay it, so the
That doesn't-
town will,
but-
yes, right.
But do we say that with all these parcels? Right, I think that's a little unfair to say with that is that they'll never pay it because they haven't in the past. I mean, we've had people that haven't paid their taxes in the past that then show up and pay it. So.
I'm going to go to Mike and then Rich.
I think we may foreclose. We aren't required to foreclose. And that means that when we hold a parcel out, we've had ones that have had, old fuel tanks on them and things like that we don't want the liability for. We had an alleyway up on East Hill that for many years we would not foreclose on because we didn't want the responsibility of having to pave and maintain, which is basically a private road up there with a lot of houses on it. So I don't think that it gives us more liability. I think we'd have more liability if we just went ahead with a foreclosure and ended up owning a piece of property that no buyer is going to want to buy from us.
Rich? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about this at least last year, maybe even in years prior, right? There is a danger if we put it up for auction, somebody buys it that doesn't have any interest in working with the homeowners, so you wouldn't have the drainage work properly in the neighborhood. So that I think it would be great if Newfield, yeah, this is Newfield, right? Got on creating their district, but they're kind of slow processes and they're complicated and trying to figure out how you're going to distribute the benefit and the payments for it. I can understand why they've been a little bit slow. I don't have a problem with us carrying this and making the other municipalities whole for a short period, another year period of time, so that hopefully they can get it done. I did have a question in the Freeville property. That's along the stream bank. That's another one we saw in past years where we want to make sure that there's no erosion issues.
Right, yeah, and it's a very slim piece of land that's even associated with, I mean, it's mostly stream and a little bit of land.
All right. So what you're looking for from us today is just sort of a, hey, this is great, thank you.
Yeah, just, right, some kind of approval to remove it from the list so that we don't take title to it.
Okay. Is that the general consensus, majority?
Is the Castle Peak Development LLC properties?
Yes.
Like the name, yeah. Whatever that means.
All right, well, we do thank you for your ongoing work on this.
Is that a vote?
It's not a vote. It's
So how do we give direction?
It's a general, I mean, there's no I mean,
Right.
I don't think we've ever voted on it in the past. Do you want to vote on it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we sent a sense of the committee without an action.
It's gone back and forth over the years.
Okay.
I saw that last year there wasn't a vote, the year before there was a vote, but that was because there are more properties on the list, but very general.
Rich?
I think Greg's right. I would move that we approve the decisions made in regard to these properties in the town of Newfield and the village of Freeville.
Okay, is there a second to that? Mike seconds. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? That's 4, opposed? That's 1, so that passes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving along. We have policies, yay. Yes, everyone can come up who's related. So my question, though, about the travel and training expense reimbursement, we are planning to have a conversation with Lori and Holly and Katrina about the discussion about legislator reimbursement for mileage and all of that. Lori couldn't be here. She's at a conference this week, so we are putting that conversation off. But this still seems like it relates to that conversation. So, because there's a section in there on packet page 23 that talks about legislators and mileage for legislators. So I guess I was wondering if we should hold off on this until we have that conversation. I mean, it may all be fine, but yeah, Mike.
Thought we had the conversation and we added that language.
Well, we may have, but my point is that the way that we've always done the travel, the local mileage reimbursement is changing based on the IRS rules. So I wanted to have that conversation. I know I've sort of talked to Holly, I've sort of talked to Norma. Norma sent an email, but we haven't really had a full conversation about it. So I was hoping to do that this month, but Lori can't be here, so.
Talk about it some more, I suppose.
Well, we are going to, but that's what I'm saying. I feel like we need to wait on this. Am I like totally off base here? Or I'm looking at Katrina like, okay. Was there other things that came up in this policy that needed revision or?
No, that was the most significant update, was
Okay.
just referencing the IRS rules for mileage reimbursement to and from a place of work. The only additional addition that was made was reference to the reasonable accommodations policy. So those are the only two
Am I completely spacing? Like, I thought we were gonna have, like, the fuller conversation.
I thought we'd gotten there, but
Oh, okay.
I don't. You could well be right. And there's no harm in waiting a month,
I could be losing
right?
my mind, but,
Let's wait a month.
okay.
The wheels of government will grind on.
Does waiting, though, impact any other, I mean, because I think in like section B of reimbursement for meals, so if there's travel and training by county staff that happen in that course of that month, we really are penalizing them because we're saying if you leave before 6 or you can't get home by 8 o'clock and those windows are narrowed and provides a little bit more clarity. So my only objection to waiting is that it actually has an impact on county staff and meal reimbursements, which the policy is suggesting be more in line with reasonableness in terms of what's actually reimbursed for employees.
So I guess the question is, do you feel like there are repercussions for not passing this month? I look to Bridget or Lisa.
Those slight repercussions that Greg mentioned, yes.
What do y'all want to do? Do you want to go ahead and pass this, or? Yeah? Rich?
Yeah, why don't we pass it, and if it needs to be amended, we amend it.
All right, well then let's have somebody move it first. Resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 04-10, Travel and Training Expense Reimbursement, ID 12329. Greg moves, Rich seconds. Questions and comments on it? I guess not. Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. Next one. Resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 0509, Petty Cash, ID 12330. Can somebody move that? Rich moves, Susan seconds. Questions, comments, conversation, Bridget?
No, I believe all of these policies also went through Budget, Capital, and Personnel, but this policy has just been updated to reflect the current petty cash policy and procedures for the county.
Okay. All right, ready to vote? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, next one, resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 05-12, Grant Applications, Acceptance, and Award Management, ID 12331. Can somebody move that? Rich moves, Susan seconds. Questions, comments? Rich?
I'm sorry for slowing down the meeting to comment, but I did want to say that I think, in part at least, this policy got developed because of me blathering on after going to NISAC in Buffalo a year and a half ago and attending a session on grants and just how important they're going to be to local governments in the next several years and how much money is moving through a grant process rather than other ones. And so I wanted to commend county administration for the substantial work done to put this together and to really formalize and I think take our grant program to the next level. So good job.
Yeah, it's quite an extensive policy, so it's great. Greg?
Yeah, there was an objection in BCP. I'm just wondering if there would, as I'm looking at the vote on the front of the resolution, just curious what the...
I was trying to remember why Lee voted no, and I can't remember.
If I recall, it was referencing the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I apologize. Let me find the, there was a slight modification after Budget, Capital, and Personnel where we added language to the extent applicable. So in award management, which is section 3, procedure, B, post-award procedures, 2, award management. We have letter B.
What page?
Oh, that I'm not sure.
Packet page either 40 or 41, I think. Post-award procedures.
Yes. Under award management, 2B.
Okay, so that's packet page 42.
So this outlined, to the extent applicable, grant management entails establishing standard operating procedures that actively promote diversity, equity, and inclusion principles. And this is in an effort, knowing with the forthcoming development of the county's equity lens as outlined through the strategic operations planning and the work of our diversity equity, or excuse me, our chief equity diversity officer, we're really looking to embed that lens through all of our practices.
That's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? A lot of good reading there in that one. Thank you. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 05-13, allowable and unallowable food expenses, ID 12333. Somebody move that. Rich moves. Seconded by Mike. Questions, comments? This is a new policy. Anything you want to tell us about it? It's fairly self-explanatory.
It is self-explanatory. My understanding, it's a long time coming. These are frequent questions and requests that are received through both county administration and the finance office, and it really provides us the clear guidance that we're in turn able to share with department heads about what's allowable and unallowable.
Yeah, it's great. I appreciate like the specific list of things that are allowable, so you can go say, oh, is my thing on that list? Well, okay. Any questions? All right. Let's vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Then we have resolution request for target funding.
Before we lose, Bridget, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Bridget, how are we doing on our review of our policies overall? I know we continue to work on them over several years, and I just wondered, have we got a lot more to finish up, or where are we?
Yeah, I think it is a never-ending process, Mike. That's a great question. What I can do is I can pull up the tracking mechanism that we have, and then maybe after this next agenda item, I can report on where we're at, if that would be fine.
That would be nice. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you bet.
I think it is kind of never-ending. There's always more that need to be reviewed. Okay, resolution request for target funding, procurement, and contract software, ID 12395. Can somebody move that? Rich moves, seconded by Susan. I think Norma's going to talk to us about this one. And she passed out a piece of paper earlier you should have on your desk.
This has been a work between multiple departments, but I handed out, sorry you didn't get this in advance. We were preparing for a budget retreat, so didn't quite get a chance to get this document out to you in advance. But we've been working with the finance office, the contracts, and frankly, I've been working a lot with the departments that are regularly responsible for preparing contracts and requests for procurement bids and such. And my experience in those conversations has been some frustration and kind of having multiple versions of documents, having misunderstandings about how the process kind of works, what they're supposed to do. There's been a lot of reworks, months of waiting for documents to be finalized just because of the misunderstandings that kind of go back and forth. So to try to address this challenge, we pulled together a group to talk about, what can we do and how can we make this more efficient. OpenGov has a module that integrates with our current budget software and also provides a workflow that would allow for the finance department and our contracts coordinator to share information through workflows in software application. The other, I could read this for you, but you have it in front of you, so I'm just kind of giving you the highlights. It also provides several templates for bids that folks are kind of struggle sometimes to write, because each of the departments have to be experts in writing bids and or RFPs, and that's not something that we necessarily have in, folks aren't necessarily trained to do that. So this provides them with templates that allow them to utilize and prepare based on the type of service that they're looking for. It also is we use BidNet right now to send these, to put out the bids for folks to reply. This provides a service similar to BidNet so that vendors can apply. It also provides a mechanism to allow them to go through the materials that are reported back to do evaluations, so that process is streamlined as well. And there's the other thing that's kind of cool about it is there's AI technology that if they can't quite figure out how to start a process, they can let AI begin it and run it for them. So at any rate, I know this is not normal for us to come and ask for target funding in the middle of a year. The reason it's being asked for now is because the next contract cycle starts the end of 2024 and runs through early 2025. So if we were to try to bring a solution to our departments and to our finance and contracts office, or contracts coordinator, this is the reason we're bringing it at this time. I will also say too that what the finance office has paid auditors to go through, the software that we have right now has no ability to run reports, and they've paid over $40,000 to have folks go through our contracts one by one to be able to provide this information to our auditors to meet the SBITA, and I had to look that up because I knew somebody would ask me what that means. It's subscription-based implementation arrangements, and that's a GASB 96 requirement. So I'll stop talking and answer questions if somebody has them.
Yeah, I'm sure there are questions, comments. Rich.
This all makes sense, although the one question I had was there appeared to be a request for an ongoing item of 60,000, but a lot of this is implementation. So I was wondering, why are we at 60? It seems like it should be a lower number.
Yeah, so the 2024 is partially the cost of the software and partially the implementation, because it would be a prorated. So the ongoing cost.
So you're paying for partial year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. And
Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to talk about Sabita, but I won't, because I think I know what it is.
Okay.
Oh, is there a current cost to BidNet?
BidNet, no, there's no cost for BidNet. The cost for us right now is through the contract. I think it's called contract software, and that's the one that our department, Jesse, uses to track our contracts. The challenge with that is if we want to know anything about it, including the compliance information that our Chief Equity Diversity Officer needs to have, we can't get that out of it. There's not a reporting mechanism in the software. That's why it's costing us so much money to go through each individual contract annually to find out the information that they need for the auditors.
A lot of folks are okay with the fact that this is coming in between budget times? Okay. Any other questions then? Or any other things you want to share?
Yeah, just happy to answer questions if you have them. I just, one thing.
Yeah.
I feel the angst for our departments who have to do the RFPs and the bids. And we really would like to find a solution for them. And I feel like this is right now our best solution. So does our finance director, our procurement folks. I don't know, she's not on, but I mean, everybody who has viewed this, we viewed it 4 times to make sure that it's going to meet the expectations that we think it's going to meet. I just really feel for those folks who are trying to get this work done in addition to all of the work they have to do to manage their departments. And this is very time consuming for them.
Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, the last question, we use OpenGov for our budget software.
Correct.
Is there any communication or benefit or interconnectivity with this and that process?
Yeah, so that, and there is a connectivity in the contract to budget piece. So we'd be able to pull that in. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for explaining it to us. I think we're ready to vote. All in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
And let us know how the implementation goes and
Will do,
all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay. Moving right along, we have several legislature topics. You may or may not recall that we are currently under a local law that allows us to have virtual meetings. That is set to expire, but the governor has changed that, so we have the ability to extend the option as we have been doing for 2 years. I guess it's been 2 years. So the next two resolutions are related to that. The first one would be to set a public hearing if anyone wants to come talk to us about it, and then the second one will be to look at that local law. So let's go ahead and move authorizing a public hearing on local law number A of 2024, allowing for the continuation of the county holding virtual public meetings until July 1st, 2026, ID 12403. Greg moves, seconded by Susan. So again, this would just be to set the public hearing for June 4th at our legislature meeting at 5:30. Questions, comments? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. And then the second one, adoption of local law number A of 2024, allowing for the continuation of the county holding virtual public meetings until July 1st, 2026, ID 12404. Can somebody move that? Greg moves, Susan seconds. So this is actually, this would be allowing us to pass that. And it's listed in here, but I think it's essentially the same as what we've been using for the past 2 years. Mike.
I'm going to be the bad guy. I think I'm going to vote against this because I think we should terminate this idea of having people not in person. And I realize it's been useful. I realize and I understand why we brought it forth in pandemic, but I think pushing it out to 26 is too long.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Rich?
Yeah, I'm going to support the resolution, but I note the concern that Mike has. I think we do far better work in person, and we should not work remotely as a convenience to ourselves. With that said, I don't think we've abused this. I really haven't seen sparsely attended meetings. I think I had one public safety meeting where I had trouble getting quorum since the pandemic. So and on the flip side, you do have situations where somebody really can't be here in person, but this allows them to actually participate. So you're getting the voice, albeit it's not in person, it's not quite as good, but I think it's a reasonable compromise, so I'll support.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think about our colleague Henry Granison, who needed to stay home for many, many months, and yet he was still able to be here virtually and talk and vote on things. And if we didn't have that opportunity, he wouldn't have had the chance to be with us through that time. So it's not ideal, but I would just echo what Rich said. Nobody has been abusing this, and you know, I think there's most meetings where legislators are in person and occasionally one or two people are remote. And I think it's completely legit, and I think it's also the way of the future. I mean, this is technology, and this is where we're at. So I think Greg and then Mike.
I think, Amanda, to your point, in Henry's specific situation, his constituents would have lost voice at the table. And for me, it's not necessarily about our voices, but the voices that we represent. And I think this creates access and accessibility to government in a way that we've never experienced, because you really have to be in a place of flexibility and some privilege to be able to constantly be in a place. And I think this can broaden and open up government and create a more accessible government. So I strongly support this.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
I just wondered if there'd be any appetite to amend this to make it a one-year extension to July of 25 rather than 26.
I see no, I would be no.
Okay, I'm just asking.
I'd consider it, but it sounds like it wouldn't go anywhere.
I just want to say that, as you know, someone who just this past 3 months have experienced physical difficulty due to an unexpected illness, I have a very active constituency, and they're in touch with me a lot, so the ability to participate via Zoom was really important so that I could get back to them to answer their questions and refer them to the videos to what was happening, so I strongly support this.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I think, you know, it's taken a while since the pandemic to work out all the technology, and we've got new screens, we've got, you know, all kinds of new stuff going on up there. And it all takes a while to understand and to, you know, transition, but I think overall it's been good, and I don't think we're doing anything, you know, crazy here, so.
Always better to be in person, though, always,
Definitely,
yeah.
Definitely. All right, anything else? I don't think so. All in favor? That's 4. Those opposed, that's 1. That passes. All right, thank you. All right, we have our next section here of the charter that we're gonna kind of just be talking about. Just a couple sections related to the legislature. Any thoughts or comments or anything anyone wanted to bring up as you read this? Rich, go ahead.
One, I was very happy in our petty cash policy that we just reviewed recently. It did catch that petty cash accounts have to be approved in the charter by the legislature. So that was there. This was interesting to me in that, you know, I said, you know, I'd like to understand this relationship between local laws, resolutions, and legalizing acts. And there was a great article online from New York State that went into tremendous detail on it, particularly home rule law and how complicated and nuanced it is in New York State to share power between the state and localities. It just is, I think, a really interesting demonstration of how democracy kind of works in practice. And it shows up here in our charter.
I wanted to ask if you have that link. I'd love to see that. That'd be really.
Okay, yeah, I'll dig it up and
Okay.
I'm happy to share it.
Thank you.
You know, and just for the benefit of anybody who hasn't gone to it, you know, the purpose of a local law is really regulatory. So you're doing something that will have impact going forward. A resolution is really specific acts. And then legalizing acts are, I think, a really important piece of fixing problems where, you know, we have so much bureaucracy and steps you're supposed to go through that it's easy to make mistakes, and the charter allows us to fix those things in certain circumstances.
I remember in charter review, we had quite a discussion about what those were.
Yeah.
I would just point out the last clause there, failure of county-appointed officials to attend meetings. In relation to the conversation we were just having, I think it's okay to miss meetings. People often do. You have other commitments or family obligations or illnesses, but letting folks know, letting the chair know, letting your committee chair know that you're not going to be there, that sort of excuses you. You're not going to be penalized for that. I think we're pretty good with this group, but I know in the past there have been people who just don't show up. And that, this is pretty clear that if somebody continues to not show up, they are vacating their seat. So it's good to be aware of that. Greg?
Just to clarify that, does this relate to electeds, or is this
No.
only, no, it's not electeds, it's only appointed
Yeah.
positions?
But morally, I think we have a.
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, of course.
Right.
Yeah, although I think before I became a legislator, there was an issue of some representatives who took,
Yeah.
for legitimate reasons, they just couldn't be here, and their people were unrepresented for a long period of time.
If only they had digital meetings.
Or it was, I think it was due to work schedules, but I remember that very clearly, yeah.
Else, I didn't really see anything in here that we would need to change related to the future changes of election law or number of legislators changing in 2026. So, all right, well, we'll continue to read some parts of the charter to inform ourselves.
Amanda?
Yeah.
If I'd like to propose a change, for example, for the number of legislators after the next census, for example, how would you want me to go ahead with that? Should I ask for a local law to be prepared? Do we want to wait? Nothing we have to do tomorrow, but I just would like to not lose track of it.
So you're saying you would like to bring a resolution to alter what the redistricting commission has said?
No,
I'm sorry.
I'm not suggesting we change it for the next election, but I'd like to change it going after that. I just think that we ought to have fewer legislators.
I mean, I guess I would say, like, that would be in the future. I'm not sure we would deal with that now. I guess I'm not sure what you...
Okay, well, let's talk
we can talk about it
offline more on it.
Okay. Okay. Katrina sent out an email, we need to reschedule July meeting. I guess maybe people didn't respond, that's why it's in here. There's some options. Do we want to talk about that briefly right now? Okay, we have time. Susan?
Oh, I will be out of the country June 24th through July 6th.
Okay, so the June dates aren't good for Susan.
I'm available any of those times at present.
Okay.
Sorry, what are we proposing?
So
in that
we have
schedule.
options on Monday, July 15th, Wednesday, July 17th, or Thursday, July 18th. Rich says any.
I have conflicts on the 18th.
Okay, but the others are okay?
The 15th and 17th work for me.
Okay, Mike, 15th or 17th?
15th works. 17th works right now.
All right, let's do, why don't we do, what?
I was just saying 10 to noon on the 15th.
We can do 10 to noon on the 15th.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
So Monday, July 15th, 10 a.m. Thank you. I'll be out of town as well for the first 2 weeks of July. And that is also the time that we don't have our July legislature meeting, the first one, which is also 4th of July. So it's possibly a time that other people won't be around as well. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to our communications director, Dominic Recchio is here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here today to give you a process update on the Tompkins County website transition that we're going through. As you'll remember, the legislature approved revamping our website in 2024 to move to a new content management system, structure, design, et cetera. So I'm going to give a brief overview of some slides and then show you a little bit more about where we are in that process. One moment. Be able to see that full screen. Great. So yeah, the last presentation that I gave in full to the legislature on this was in the fall of last year, where I provided an overview of why we're headed in this direction. We've since completed quite a bit of work. If you'll remember that we talk about the website as really the county's primary public information hub. We have around 1,000 pages currently on the website. We're trying to reduce that number because it contributes to some difficulties for members of the public finding what they're looking for, and we're definitely on that track. But it is our primary information hub where we link pretty much everything back to digitally. I would consider it a very cost-effective public information resource. It takes a lot less time to put something on a web page than to create the information in another format for most departments. We get well over 1 million page views across the site in a year, and that number is growing, and we have over 1,500 sort of individual users a day, people in the community or otherwise who are surfing the site. It's a great opportunity for us to advertise and deliver our services to the public. My goal is always to create a great first impression with a member of the public and our government services and the people that we have. And it enhances our ability to establish consistency and credibility when we're communicating on behalf of the local government to the public. So this is a slide I used last time, just putting sort of an arrow showing you where we are in the process. We're currently between the site structure and content review and the visual design portions. I'll talk a little bit more about visual design in a little bit, but each department has been tasked over the past few months with reviewing every page on their website, all of the content within it, deciding what should be moved forward, what should be improved, and what should be removed. And that process is still ongoing, but we'll be sending a complete spreadsheet of all of our pages that we intend to keep to the vendor to begin the migration of that information next week. So that's coming up. The visual design process is about to sort of kick off more in earnest. I will say that we have a steering committee that I've shared some details of this group before, that's made up of some department heads, some users from across the organization, and folks who are frequent, who have complex or well-developed sites that really need it to work for their department. So they've been working on this with me. It's not just me making these decisions from the communication standpoint. And you'll remember as well that we did some significant surveying of our staff, users, and then the wider community. So where we are in the visual design process, we've approved a wireframe for the county's new homepage that is, there's a copy of it in the packet, and I can share that screen after to walk you through what that user experience will look like. It is really just an outline. The text on it or the shapes or other things like that are not final, but it is sort of an outline of how people will use it. This was designed based on feedback from our employees, feedback from the public. We looked at how people are navigating our current site. We actually used a heat map of where people's cursors sort of hover or where they're clicking. We went really in depth to look at what people are looking for. So the wireframe is a great tool for us to talk about the functionality for the site. And the last piece before I share the wireframe with you is a little bit more on functionality. One thing that I'm very excited for is we will have, you can see in the top right here, there's just a screenshot of what it would look like for someone to sort of hover over a top-level menu item and be able to get much deeper into our site from right when you hit the home page or any page on the site than they can now. So what that would look like, on our homepage now, I would say we probably have 2/3 of our departments linked somewhere from the homepage in a one-click off to those departments. In this new structure, we'll be able to help people find almost exactly what they're looking for pretty much right away when they hit the homepage. And that's something that we're working through now is the architecture of, okay, here's what we're going to call each section. We'll test this out with some users, but imagine one of the top bar items is public safety. You'd hover over that public safety item and you'd see the very first one would be emergency notifications or emergency response, and you'd see Siren and Tompkins Ready and other programs from Dewar 911 Center. The second one would be Sheriff's Office, and you would see not only a link to their homepage, but like right into the things that people are most often looking for from the Sheriff's Office, same with DA, assigned counsel, or otherwise. So that's something I'm very, very excited for. That ability for people to navigate deeply into the site from right when you get to it. And it also helps me as a communications director with all of this data and all of these conversations. I'm getting a real look into what people are looking for from the county. What information and services do we need to increase the amount of accessibility to the public? I think we have outliers on both sides of that end. I used an example last time where there were some pages on the Office for the Aging site that were excellent information about for caregivers, but it wasn't accessed nearly as much as I would expect with the amount of people who are providing care for elders in our community. So those pieces of data really help me think about how to help departments outside of the website too. So I've been very grateful to work on this project in that way. Second piece here that I want to show you is we're going to have a new tool on the homepage that's sort of called digital wayfinding. I know the legislature just got a wayfinding presentation from the chamber yesterday. Similar concepts of sort of providing some signposts and some shared language that people can understand how to navigate our information. So every page on the site will get a set of tags. We'll use public safety, for example. There would be certain pages on that might be tagged courts, or some that might be tagged emergencies. And so if someone's looking for something, they might be able to see all the information for something that has to do with courts across different department pages. Right now, people can only navigate within the structure of each sort of department's pages, but this will allow us to look at information across several different pages. So the filters and the categories, I'm not sure what those are going to look like yet. There are real experts who are helping us figure out what those should be based on some of this data. One example I've been using for people is, housing. The county doesn't necessarily provide direct housing, but we have so many different things that overlap with housing across many different departments, whether that's Office for the Aging's information on how to find senior housing, fair housing, complaints information through human rights, Community Housing Development Fund, or other planning activities, work through DSS and their housing. And people are approaching that from all different angles. But in our surveys, people are like, we want housing information in one place. We may not be able to make a new housing page because that's a little onerous, but this tool would allow us to have people filter by things that are tagged housing, and they would be able to see the entire scope pretty quickly of all of the things that the county is doing that overlap with that. So I'm really excited about that tool, and I can help explain it better over time as we go along. We're still many months out from getting to the final part of this project. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was really it gives us a chance to do a lot more in-depth training and a better user interface for our staff. So my hope is that our staff are feeling really good about updating their content on the website, and that we're setting new expectations with them so things don't get outdated very quickly. So that's the quick overview there. I want to just switch to showing you the...
Can we
have
a question?
Absolutely.
Greg has a question.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. I love the digital wayfinding piece and bringing all that information together. That seems like it would take a greater administrative burden to make sure that pages are tagged correctly, and as pages get updated, new tags are added, et cetera. And I'm sure in your process that's something that's thought about, but is there any sort of automation or anything around that because departments have some control over their web pages, right? And they do some posting and things like that. So how do we make sure that as this goes on, that functionality doesn't break or become diminished?
It's a really excellent question. The first part of it is that we're doing this whole scale review of all pages, and we'll get back from the vendor what's called a sitemap. Through that, it'll be sort of chunked out into different sections, and we'll go in and create our initial batch of tags. So I've already been working with department heads and different public information staff in different departments to get their feedback on what tags would you like to see in that initial set. So I've been keeping a running list that I'll merge with what the vendor's able to create. And we'll probably put it all into a spreadsheet. When they upload it, it'll all go in for the first batch of tags. But then you're right, there'll be a time where it's a handoff to departments for them to start thinking through this lens. So I'm thinking a lot about how we improve that training and expectation setting for departments so that they know that that's an expectation that we have. I may be able to run some reports on pages that are tagged or, do some user testing on things. But for me, I think the way to really scale it and to make it work is to embed that, understanding and practice in each department. I've been keeping track of every title that it will be responsible for working with this tool across the organization. I'm also planning on working with HR to make sure that updating the website is in those job descriptions for each of those titles so that people have that expectation when they're brought into the organization and that training can be delivered to them as we go along.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Anything else, Mike?
When I go to a lot of websites and I don't know what I'm looking for, and I don't see easily how to get to where I want to be, I go to a search box and I'll type in a question or type in a name of something, and the search box will say nothing found or can't help you. And I understand about this digital way of looking at it, but a lot of people won't understand that, but they would be able to put in something and try to get to that same place with a typed in question or things. To me, that's a perfect place for AI to search our own website and say, yeah, you're asking about notifications, for example, of emergency notifications, and then that says yes, and it takes you to Siren or whatever. So that's one of the things I would hope that our website would eventually be able to help and improve.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. Right now, we have a search bar on our website, and it doesn't lead to the best user experience. It doesn't find things as quickly as it should, and it doesn't categorize things by date either. So a lot of people, I find when I look at the search queries that people are doing, searching for news stories or updated items, and if someone typed in budget, for example, they may get a 2018 story on budget. It may take them a little while to know that's from 2018.
Yes, right.
So I'm hoping that when we do use search on the site, in different places, and we can have a search function on the homepage or other places, when we have it, the confines of that search will be predefined. So someone might click the news page, and that's where they would be doing their search. That's where we want them to do the search, because then it's only searching the news items. Or documents, they're searching through documents, and they want to use those tags. I definitely agree that it's a function that needs to work well in the site. The other thing I'll add on that is what I've gathered from my research is that a lot of people don't use our current search function on the website because they've already searched through Google rather than entering our homepage and then going from there. So if someone's looking for social services, for example, let's say the HEAP program, they're typing in heating assistance Tompkins County in Google, and they're getting directly to that page ahead of time, which, over the past 10 years, the number of people who are doing the search on our site has really decreased because more people know they're just going to type it in the URL bar of their phone or computer, and it's bringing them right in. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I can say that between 30 and 50% any given month of people visiting our site are coming directly into the page they want to see from Google. And having that increase is probably a good thing, even though the homepage is going to be hopefully amazing. So I know that's a lot of different pieces, but when I think about the search functionality for our site, those are the considerations that we're thinking through.
Thanks, that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just briefly show you this wireframe. I won't spend much more time on it because I've gone over most of the different functionality. We'll have a nice big image that's sort of the shape is yet to be defined, but a nice big image of our employees or some random image loading of different sort of employees delivering services at the county. We'll have sort of 6 to 12, I don't know how many immediate links that people want to hit right away. I can tell you that siren alerts and recycling materials management, those are two things that people want like a button to right away from the homepage. Those are things that I know are going to be there. I don't know what the other function will be.
Doesn't everybody want to look up the legislature?
I'll get to that in a moment. I'll show you exactly where you will all be featured. The latest news, this is something that we don't currently have the ability to do, but in the future, the news function on the homepage will pull from every department that posts any news. It's unbelievable that we don't have this right now, but in the future it will be, let's say the sheriff puts out a press release. Right now people have to go to the sheriff's page to find that. In the future it'll automatically feed to the homepage, which is a big change and really great for us. We're gonna have a section on the homepage. We do now. We'll have one in the future featuring the legislature. The tentative plan right now is to actually have each of these, what they're called cards, each of these cards be one of the committees of the legislature, so that the first one will be the whole legislature. And then imagine, the first one would be GO, the second one would be budget, capital, and personnel. People will be able to click right through to the meetings and minutes for those committees. And we'll have a nice photo that sort of encapsulates what each committee does as well. I know, that's a really good one to use for that.
Would it also link to the recordings of the meetings?
Yep,
that would be there too.
Yeah, that would all be integrated within there, definitely. And there's also going to be a YouTube link at the very top of the page. Similar to Jay, I have some challenges with social media, but a lot of people are looking to at least the YouTube page, so we're going to have that pretty bookmarked right at the very top, as well as the ability to, if there's ever an emergency in the community or something we need people to know about right away, we can add a new red or yellow or green bar at the very top of the site telling them something's gone wrong. The last thing I want to say is just this is just a placeholder featured section. My vision for this is to have it really be about our organizational culture and our people. I think the first one that we might have would be maybe our values, an image of, would link off to the values page with an image of employees. Second one would be our diversity statement, similarly. Third one would be our people, or maybe working at Tompkins County to help people see this as a viable employer, a great place to work, great place to be, et cetera. So I'm just going to stop sharing because that's the end of the PDF. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that folks have, but thanks for giving me the opportunity to give you an update. It's been a huge project.
That's great. It's really great to see the changes, and we've updated over the years the current website, but this is good to see a bigger change. Mike?
I just wondered, are we putting all of our legal notices on the web at this point, or is there a way for people to get to them?
Off the top of my head, I'm not certain. I see Katrina coming out, who likely will have the direct answer for you.
But there are also departmental notices that go out.
Legislature ones are posted through the meeting portal, but I do not have the ones from the various departments.
With the problem that we're having with print media, that might be something to think about too.
That's a great point. And I think having, the departments who do have that, I think clerk's offices or the clerk, DMV, et cetera, they have some. So that's a
Highway,
great point. Highway, absolutely. Some departments will post it right on their department's homepage for a period of time. And I don't want it to supersede that. I want it to all live in one place. So it'd be nice to be able to create that. So it's a great idea, Mike.
Greg.
A couple quick questions. This is a service provider that we've contracted with to host this, or this platform is?
The company's name is Granicus, and they provide our email newsletter software and the software that the clerk's office, the legislature clerks are switching to, currently have and improving through this Legistar system. It's the same provider.
And then just for visually impaired and other things, I know the little about websites that I've ever done is certain things aren't readable and things like that. There's a full evaluation of accessibility as it relates to the website.
Absolutely. Our site is currently crawled every night for scores across accessibility on every page, and some updates are requests for updates are pushed to departments, and I work with them on making sure that they're making it accessible. So yes, it's happening, and it's going to get even better with the new site because we're going to be using a tool, ideally, I'm working on it, called UserWay, which has a little accessibility icon that just pops up. People are in the community who use it are very used to this this tool, where someone would actually be able to set some of their own usability functions as well, to say, okay, I want to increase the contrast on this screen or increase the text size. And our new site, it will allow for that, those pieces to move around in a much better way. But our current site is very accessible to people who use screen readers or other technology like that. But I can say I'm excited it's going to get even better.
Fantastic. And then the last question is, you said in the future, curious what's the timeline, or what does that mean?
Great question. Yeah, so right now we're in that entering the visual design stage. We could go back and forth with the vendor a few times for visual design, and then they have to migrate all of those different pages over. My anticipation is that's going to take a few months for them to work through each one of those pages and bring over the information into the new architecture. Then there will be a time, I'm imagining also a few months, where departments will have both sites up. The current one, which lives live and is what the public will be using, and then what's called a sandbox where people can play around with the potential new site before we publish it. And that's their chance to make sure everything looks the way they want, for troubleshooting, for training. My estimate throughout the process has been it would be amazing to launch it in December, but Q1 of next year, January, is likely. It could happen sooner. We're moving actually really quickly through most of the process, so it's possible it could happen sooner, but that's my goal.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
So much. I think we should move on and finish up our reports, but
sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this was very informative. All right, we have just a couple minutes left. Let's do a couple reports. I just wanted to say that, and maybe Lisa or Bridget was going to say, but we did have a meeting related to election security, and I attended that last week. And it included the sheriff, Department of Emergency Response, a range of IT folks, but there is a lot of concern this year with this year's election that there could be bigger threats or problems either the day of the election or leading up to the election. So the group got together to, sort of talk about what they were hearing so far, what's possible, and how we can prepare. And I just want to say that I was very impressed with our staff and everyone who was there for really, they've already been thinking about this and what can we do and what do we, you can only be prepared for what you think is going to happen, but it could be a challenging year. So I really appreciated that, and I think you're going to continue to meet just to kind of keep up on anything that arises. So I appreciated that. And then I have a question for legislators. I was contacted a month or two ago by a man, Kenneth McLaurin, who's a local artist comedian. And he was wondering if we have a poet laureate position. He was wondering if we would consider other laureate positions, either an artist or a comic laureate. And obviously, we're not going to talk about this today, but I just wondered if there was any interest in maybe getting a little research. Do other counties or other communities have other laureate programs, and would we want to consider that? So is that something folks might want to think about, or no, we don't want to do that? Greg?
I think we have an artistically rich community, and to highlight that diversity, it may make sense. I don't know what it means, but
Yeah.
I think we have a rich arts community and culture, so.
Talk about it some more?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Sure.
Rich says sure. Susan?
And Kenneth is very active in the community. At one time, he was the acting head of Southside, so he's embedded in the community. So it's interesting that he brought it forward. I'd be
Yeah.
interested in thinking about it more.
So, yeah, Mike?
Be interested in what CAP's opinion would be.
Good idea.
Because we've asked them to filter and make recommendations on the poet laureate. Poet laureate positions go back centuries.
Right.
But I don't know exactly how we would handle this, but I think CAP might be able to talk to us about it.
Yeah, and that's what I said to him, and I think he might have recently joined their board or something like that. So, but I just wanted to know if it was something folks wanted to consider a little bit more. So, okay, thank you. County
We
Administrator.
only have so much wall space.
Amanda?
Yeah.
I'm time-bound today, so I'm going
Okay.
to have to leave.
Okay.
But I would be very interested to hear a little bit more on the email we just got from our county administrator about the Red House.
That was going to be my, since Amanda, you mentioned the election security, my only other update is that we no longer own the Red House. Excuse me. As of yesterday, we closed on the Red House, and I want to acknowledge and thank Norma Jane for her hard work and coordinating with the various parties, including our real estate agent, attorney, and city staff and county staff to coordinate and make that happen smoothly.
Wow, amazing.
And my understanding is the party that bought it wants to use it as their residence.
Yes, that's correct.
I wonder if at some point in the future we could get to see what it looks like when it's all refurbished, if they would let any of us traipse through. Because it's a beautiful house once it's fixed up.
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, Charlene, do you have any updates for us?
Yes, very quickly. Good morning, everyone. So we are currently relaunching the reading and discussion groups in our effort to build institutional capacity related to DEI. A curriculum was developed, and right now that is in the hands of the co-chairs of JEDI, Rachel Graham and Dr. Clark, and they will be identifying facilitators who are from JEDI that will facilitate conversations related to different topics across the landscape. That is a 5-month curriculum, so we'll start in May. Legislators are invited, so once they finalize the schedule, I'll be sharing that with you all, and if you would like to attend, you can. This will be internal. I know in the past it was, there was a collaboration with the city of Ithaca and the town of Ithaca, but as of now, this is just for Tompkins County. We'll start this curriculum and then move into having a more external-facing opportunity for our colleagues, our external stakeholders to learn with us. So that is my update.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Charlene? All right, thank you very much. County Attorney, Holly, any updates?
I don't really have any updates specific for this committee. I'll give a more detailed update at the Ledge meeting next Tuesday. But just a heads up, I'll be out tomorrow and Monday to go to a wedding, so hopefully nothing major will happen while I'm gone.
Hopefully. Thank you. And yeah, don't check your email while you're gone. Dom, any other updates? Nope. Okay. Committee members, anything you wanted to bring up? Greg?
At some point before election season, could we just get an update maybe on county employees as poll workers and maybe some of the challenges that are created with that, or opportunities to think creatively on how to encourage poll workers and try to understand better around poll worker recruitment and the needs for the challenges that they continue to face at the Board of Elections?
Sure, we can definitely, and we probably should have Steve and Alana come in maybe a little more often. Let's touch base and we can email them specific questions and get them to come in.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you all. We are adjourned. Have a good day. Appreciate it.